back to the Remote No Pressure podcast. It's great to be back, Bo.
It is great to be back.
It's awesome. Now, last week we talked a little bit about nosy neighbors.
That we did.
That was kind of funny.
Uh-huh.
Good thing that my neighbor is like 80, so he'll never hear.
Doesn't know what a podcast is.
But he is a good neighbor.
Yeah.
That's the great thing.
The few
about
times
it.
I've had encounters, he seems like a really nice guy.
You know the worst? Let me tell you this quick story about an old neighbor of mine.
Yeah.
They had a daughter who was like, well, let me go back. What's worse than a little bit of a nosy neighbor? I can't complain about my neighbor.
No.
He watches my comings and goings, but really, it's okay. I'm not going anywhere funny.
It's probably a security thing, too. You don't have to pay for home security.
Exactly.
Does he carry a gun?
Probably.
Hey.
Yeah. He has had some conversations with me in the yard that I got a little bit uncomfortable with, not because of the gun thing, but
Noticed your tidy whities out again on the line.
You know, it's like my grandma says. Like my grandma always said, you know, don't talk about religion or politics.
Yep.
And for some reason, people younger than us or our age or this generation feels like I'm going to tell you all of my beliefs. You know what I mean? Like I want to tell you everything. And it's like, I really don't want to know. You're a nice guy. I don't want to know, you know. But yeah, he probably carries a gun. Maybe not carry, but I know he's probably...
Maybe not legally, but...
I know he's got a few.
Yeah.
Hey, did you read about... I think it was in Michigan. They're trying to get rid of the concealed handgun.
So everybody could do it?
So everyone could do it.
I did hear about that. I am pro that.
Let's share some political views.
Yes, I think that would be good. Go Trump.
No, but that was interesting. I was like, wow, that's interesting. You know what I always found I always had a problem with a bit. You know what's always grinded my gears?
You know what grinds my gears?
You know what grinds my gears? People who are ex-military, that are awesome people,
yeah,
no issues,
yeah,
oftentimes have to go get a permit to have a concealed handgun. It's
Yep.
like these are the best trained people
These
in
are
the
the people
world.
who know how to use guns.
They're the best. They're like the best in the world. If anyone should be carrying, I want them to carry. You
That's
know?
right.
It's like, let me buy you a gun, please. You know,
Here you are. Take mine.
if we're gonna hang out here, you should just buy this.
I think the whole in the whole carrying debate, it should be on the mental health side should be covered before you buy the gun. You know what I mean? Because that way, if you carry it, you're fine. You should be fine anyways. The people who can't get a gun then shouldn't be carrying. I guess that's kind of just logic, but
Yeah, you would think. Like it's weird because growing up in Texas, my grandfather, he had a ranch and he had an old Ford pickup truck.
Yep.
And he had loaded guns in the window. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? He had like a gun
that's
rack.
old school. You used to be able to do that here.
He had a gun rack in the back in the back window of his pickup.
Yeah.
And then he had a loaded 9mm in the glove compartment.
Man.
Right? And I'm a kid, right? I'm just a dumb kid. My whole life grew up around it, and you just know, don't touch the freaking guns.
Yep.
They will
You've been
kill
told
you.
and you've been slapped.
Yes. But I grew up around guns all the time, and just you just don't touch them, and they weren't like an item that we were scared of.
Yeah.
However, me personally, I don't keep loaded weapons in my house just laying around when my kids are playing. I would never do that.
I actually do.
No, you do.
I
Well,
do.
yeah, but you don't have kids running around your house.
It'd be weird if I did, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be weird. Oh, I could go down a bunny hole. I could go.
We're just gonna leave that. We're just gonna leave that one where it lay.
Yeah. So, I don't leave my guns just like laying around,
Yeah.
especially loaded.
Yep.
It's just not a smart thing to do. It's like, I'm just gonna, I've got a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. Let me just, because my kids are obsessed with guns already, like toy guns and
I was too as a kid. But we had a gun cabinet.
Okay.
And I'd play with the rifles and the shotguns, but not like loaded. Like I would make sure they were unloaded before I looked at them. But my dad taught me like to respect rifles or guns as a kid.
Yeah, that was the thing. We were taught that
Yep.
I was just taught I wasn't taught how to handle them or to treat them. I was just told to leave them the, leave them the F alone. It's almost like, well, then if you're so scared that I'm going to touch them, then put them away.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't have guns laying around the house, but
you should let them each shoot one shotgun at this age and it will scare them straight.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll knock them on their butt.
Reagan shot some guns.
Has he?
Yeah, he loves it. He told me, he said, it kind of weirded me a little bit because he's 9, he's like, Dad, there's just something about the smell of gunpowder. It just calms me down.
Whoa.
I was like, okay, well, that's cool. But he really likes shooting 22s a lot.
Yeah.
Like he'll shoot, target shooting and stuff in the backyard, completely supervised.
Yeah.
But it's just funny how in the 80s we just did whatever we wanted. Paint chips, whatever. It was a different time.
It was a different time.
We always talk about a different time on the show.
We're old souls.
we're awfully old,
I know.
For the podcast generation. Mm-hmm. I wonder what our demographic, our key demographic age is.
I do too. I don't know.
I think we have a pretty broad age.
What?
We have a pretty broad range of people that listen. Because it's funny because when we go do events and stuff, sometimes we'll have people that are quite a bit older than us and then people that are younger than us. So that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
And that's what I like about the fly fishing community is like it's pretty diverse.
Yeah.
And it's like you'll see these older people with like sweet patterns.
Yep.
Fly patterns. And they're like the younger people are like, I gotta have it. And it's like this really cool thing that comes together.
Yeah.
This week we're gonna talk to Cameron Cushman. I'm super excited to talk about him.
Yeah?
Not to talk about him, but talk
about him. Let me talk about him.
I'm super excited about the interview because man, he's had some crazy stuff done to him. And here's something I was going to ask you about. There's a lot of times when we see people on the internet. We see people on the Instagram and on the Facebook.
Yep.
I call it just because it's just irritating.
Because I don't participate in it.
You don't. I do.
I don't.
So, but if I take a look at like Facebook and Instagram, you see people on there, and you envy what they have, or you may think about they're this certain way or they're perfection all the time. And I tell you what's really annoying, what really grinds my gears, Bill, is
we're bringing it back.
Is when people are like, they're posting something and they're like, I'm just going to be real for a minute. I'm just going to, and then they talk about like basically bragging, like.
Oh, I've seen them where back in the day when I was on Facebook, like, let me just be real for a minute. And they'd go on like this huge rant about how their life sucked.
Yeah.
And it's like, why couldn't you just be real all the time and, complain just here and there?
Right.
Instead of like these massive, like quarterly rants, but then everything else is fine. Have you seen where people are faking vacation photos to make people jealous?
I hear that's a business.
Yeah.
And my buddy, he's a private jet pilot. Okay. Yeah. He flies private jets. And he was telling me the other day that some rapper had rented out the jet to take pictures in, wasn't flying it anywhere, couldn't afford to fly it.
Yep.
But he rented it for a few $100 for a photo shoot. So it looked like he was like, that's
baller,
crazy.
High rolling.
What do you think about that?
It's just fake. It's just phony. I don't know.
Like
I don't know what to think about
the
that.
Fire Festival.
Oh man, that was nuts. Did you watch that video?
I did. I watched
on Netflix. That dude.
We all know a guy like that, though.
Yeah.
We all know a guy. There was a guy I used to know. His name was Josh, and we worked in the mortgage business together. And the guy could squeeze money out of a turnip. He was just that way. Like people liked him. He's very charismatic, and like the last time I talked to Josh, it was probably in 2009. It was like after the whole mortgage crash and everything. And I'm pretty sure he was high on opium in some Asian country. I'm not joking. Like he told me, I can't remember if he was in like Vietnam or something like that. And like he was like, man, he's like, you got to come over here, man. It's amazing. Like he was just that guy, that everyone loved him. Like he could sell anybody anything, but like his personal life was just, I think he's dead now. I can't find him.
Oh man, that's a bummer.
I've tried to find him. Like, I don't know. It's just weird how
Did you look behind the couch? I'm sorry, that's not even funny.
So anyways, the reason I bring that up is because Cameron Cushman has like is a very authentic person.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about him. And his social, like he's a videographer and he does an amazing job with videography and he's won awards and he's just an amazing person. But like, his story's awesome. And I want to just go off about it right now in the intro, but I can't ruin the interview.
Save it for the interview.
It's so good. Like he's just a genuine person. And like, yeah, his social is on point and he's doing a great job. But talking to him was extremely refreshing just to, people who've just been through some crap.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you understand life a little bit. You have something that I don't.
Let me glean some wisdom.
Yeah. Or like you talk to people like, I want to say kids these days, but I know a lot of people.
We're of that generation that can say that, though.
But I know a lot of people my age who've never been through anything hard. Everything's gone right for them.
Yep.
And it's like they just don't have a depth to them,
Yeah.
When I talk to Cameron, it's like he's been through some crap,
Yeah.
and he has some depth to him. And I just really, really appreciated that about our interview.
Have you ever heard those? We'll call them like, say, motivational speakers, or I hear a lot of public speaking, and you got some people who've been through some crap that you can actually take a lot away from. And then you got others who've been through nothing. It's like, how much of your shenanigans should I actually listen to? Because I don't know if you know what you're talking about. You know what I mean?
Let's just put it this way. Okay, I'm going to open up a bit. All right, I've hired myself an 18-year-old life coach. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. No, everyone's a life coach now. But anyways, but for real, let me tell you this quick story. As a lot of the listeners know, and my religious beliefs have changed a lot, but I went to school. I went to Bible college, and I was studying the Bible. I was studying to be a pastor. I moved to Michigan, go on staff at a really large church, okay, as like an intern. I was a music person.
Yeah.
And I was an RA at college, okay? And one of the guys on my floor was this like very dirty person. Like I always was like, and I was not the RA that would get on to people. Like
you were the cool RA.
If you were breaking the rules, like we weren't allowed to walk on the grass, right? At our college. Or you could get written up.
Wow.
Like it's very strict.
I've driven past that college. Was there a lot of grass there? I like
Yes,
no,
there
green.
was both
Wow.
grasses. Yes. But I was the kind of guy, like, if you walked on the grass, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like this.
By the book.
Right. Because you know what? That's not my problem.
You were a dirty RA. Like,
right. Exactly. They're like,
I didn't see it for a cost.
You're going to do some time, son, or you could pay me $10. No, but like the internet was just out.
Yep.
And no one knew about this whole thing. And kids were looking at pornography on their computers on the internet, and like we were like assigned to like help catch these people looking at pornography. And this is all crazy to me now that I'm an adult and my beliefs have changed.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't go into these guys' computers and look at stuff. Like, I'm just not going to do that. That's between them and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to know what you do. You know what I mean? But I was that kind of RA. Well, I had this one guy on my floor that was just a pain in the neck. And I don't care what you do. But for some reason, he was just a pain in the neck. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I come up here to work at a church, and his father-in-law happens to be on staff at this mega church. So he got a job as a pastor right out of Bible college. So I'm there one night just hanging out, and he comes up and starts rubbing my back, okay? And he's like, well, Jeff, it's great to see you here, buddy. If you ever need any prayer or anything, just feel free to.
How the tables have turned.
And I'm like, you sick son of a... I was like, all right, thanks, man. And in my head, I'm like, dude, I would never. Why am I going off on this? I don't know. But like, there's people, what you were saying, like you see these motivational speakers who've never been through anything, or you talk to these people who are like life coaches, or they are even pastors and stuff that really haven't been through much. Want to tell you how to live, or someone who doesn't have kids want to tell you how to parent.
Yeah.
Or that is like, oh my.
You don't even know what you're talking about.
Would you? This is a really long intro, but would you rather have a really easy life with no problems, with plenty of money, everything goes right, everything is perfect. Never sick. No one you've known has ever had cancer. It's like,
I don't think that life exists because you're going to run into adversity at some point in time. Everybody's dying. You know what I mean? So you're going to run into that at the end, obviously. Everybody knows somebody with cancer. You're not going to run into that at all. You might be able to have like the life where mom and dad pay for everything, but only to a point, because eventually they're going to die.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to deal with that, unless you die before your folks. And then, I don't know. It's crazy. I don't think there is that perfect life.
But we strive and complain when things aren't perfect.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
We're like, oh man, if only I could just get this, or if I could only just get that.
Yep.
And it's like, but those things, those heartaches and those issues we go through just make us great people.
I agree.
Yeah.
You if you've been through some trials, you kind of know your way around adversity. You know what I mean? You know how to get past that, and you know how to handle the next one a little bit better.
Hopefully,
hopefully, this is true.
Hopefully, it doesn't.
There are
put you
some
over
people
the
who
edge.
don't learn, like going back to my DUI.
Right.
I know people with multiples.
Right.
But myself, I won't have a second.
Right.
Like
I'm not going through that again.
One and done.
One and done. Right. Well, cool. Well, Cameron definitely has some depth. He's been through
Yeah.
some things, and it was just great and refreshing to talk to him. And I'm just really happy he spent some time with us. So, welcome to the podcast. Let's light the fire. Very excited today to have on the remote No Pressure podcast, Cameron Cushman. Thank you very much for joining us, Cameron.
Hey, no problem. Glad to be here.
Now, I've seen you've got some great content online. I've seen you in some of the videos and different things that you're working on. Now, is videography kind of like your niche in the fly fishing community?
Yeah, definitely. At least in the past 2 years or so. I think before, I've always been into photography, and in the past 2 years, I've kind of pushed myself into the filming world. Just wanted to learn something new, and I definitely think that's kind of where most of my time is being occupied, and what I'm really trying to push out now.
That's great. Now, are you retired military? Did you retire from the military?
Yes, medically.
Okay. Now, reading over your bio, it had said that you had discovered fly fishing in the military. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, Cameron?
Yeah, so at the time I was stationed up in Alaska, and obviously Alaska is a pretty big place to fly fish. And I grew up my whole life conventional fishing, whether it be from shore or boat, kayak, really anything. Got up to Alaska, and I was in one of the local stores, which I believe is a Sportsman's Warehouse, if memory serves me correct. And they had this fly fishing outfit that was there. I want to say it was like a Reddington crosswater combo, which I think at the time was called the Topo. That as the combination pack itself, I think was the Topo or something weird like that, which I could be wrong and my memory's just gone. But I bought that, bought a bunch of flies that the guy had recommended, didn't know what I was doing, watched a few YouTube videos, and the breakup hadn't really happened. So in Alaska, basically everything's frozen, until the breakup in summertime comes around. And I went out right when the breakup was starting. So there was still like ice chunks floating down the river. Half the river was still frozen. So I'm kind of standing on, an ice bar, and I have no intention of catching anything. I'm just trying to figure out how to cast. And my wife is sitting up in the car, and she just starts beeping the horn at me, screaming, saying that I look like, one of those girls that twirls those sticks that have that long ribbon on the end of them.
Yeah.
I don't know what that exact.
The color guard. The color guard.
Yeah. She says that I'm like one of those people, and I was like, oh, thanks. So I actually didn't pick up the fly rod again until I PCS'd to Texas. So I had a short little. I left short, I think, that fall. So I tried it a few more times in Alaska, and I wish I would have really stuck to it in Alaska, because I really didn't. I don't think I caught a single fish on the fly in Alaska, besides I think some stalked rainbows, which don't count for Alaska. So we moved to Texas, and then I followed, I forget who it was. I want to say it was Ryan Shaper. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing your last name and you're listening to this. he was at the time the Austin kayak manager for the Austin store. So like the Austin version of that, their hub. Mm-hmm. And he was catching like a lot of big bass on the fly. And I was like, man, that's super cool. I definitely need to get back into it. And so I picked it back up, and I figured it out pretty quickly from then. So I started exploring like different waters, and we got to Texas around October, and by December I had already made my first trip to the Devil's River. And because I just was super pumped up about that place, and I'd always wanted to go there. And I think before I moved back to Florida, 2 years later, I'd gone to the Devil's 18 or 19 times. So it definitely holds a special place in my heart. But yeah, I linked up with a bunch of guys in Texas, whether they were military guys or, just the Texas crowd, and just all around great group of guys, a lot of good anglers, and Texas holds a special place in my heart. I think it has the best fly fishing community in the nation.
Yeah, they're very strong. We have a lot of listeners down there, and we've had a lot of Texans. I'm from Houston originally, so there's a special place in my heart because it's where I was born and raised. But I moved away, and then everyone, I think there's always been fly anglers, but that culture's really taken off the last few years, and it's like, man, I feel like I'm missing out, even though I live in Michigan, the home of Trout Unlimited, and I have great trout water, and I can't complain about the fishing that I have, but I just sense that community is just on fire down there with fly fishing. It's really cool to see. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Howler Brothers being there and Yeti now having their flagship there, I think that definitely helps the scene big time. And, while it was being ran kind of by Texans, the fly fishing film tour, the F3T, they were doing an incredible job. And then this year, I believe, was their first year that it went back to being F3T ran. And, so I've heard they try to keep some Texas companies involved, but I guess just, the companies that basically pay for the whole tour were kind of wanting to, take more control of it. But I think that was a big part of why the community was so big. I mean, that would sell out at the Paramount Theater. Like, that was such an awesome event. And Texans are there's something about Texas fly anglers. They want to fish with each other. Like, hey, let's actually go fish, versus some places like Florida, which has the worst fly fishing community. So if y'all fly anglers from Florida are listening, take note. But yeah, it's crazy down here. Nobody wants to fish. People are just too protective of spots, or unfortunately, if, Florida's a little bit different. You really have to have a skiff to fish. At least the saltwater flats. And most people think, if I have the skiff, that means I'm going to be pulling and I'm never going to fish. So I see it in some way, but I think that it could be a lot better when you look at it compared to Texas and just how great that community is. Yeah, that's really cool to hear. I have some friends who live in Florida. They kind of say the same thing. They're like, fly fishing is tougher here than you would think, because I'm thinking, oh, you're surrounded by water, it sounds great, a lot of saltwater fishing in there. Well, it's just tougher. It's tougher than you think. And they didn't really complain about the community, but they just said it's just a little tougher to fish. And I was kind of taken aback by that. I was kind of surprised. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have a lot of water issues now, especially in recent years, and there's been big pushes against that. Bull Sugar, Captains for Clean Water, a bunch of great organizations that are just trying to spread more awareness about what's going on, and with the blue-green algae that's coming out of Lake Okeechobee and how that affects our fisheries and stuff like that. So luckily where I am, I'm kind of situated in an area that doesn't get hit too bad by any of those. So I live in Vero Beach, which I'm right on the Indian River Lagoon, which used to be the most diverse ecosystem in the planet. If memory serves me correct, I could be wrong. Somebody's probably going to jump in and correct me. But at one point, I believe it was, and it still may be, but I think we've lost a lot of species out of here due to pollution, loss of grass. And normally snook, for us at least, are the fish that always gets hit the hardest, whether it's pollutants or especially cold snaps. Anytime we get a cold snap here, the snook die. So there'll always be a bunch floating and stuff like that. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, tarpon are making a comeback in Texas. I've been seeing more and more being caught lately, so that's good. Yeah, that's great. That's speaking of native species. I mean, are you guys still working on your film, Cameron? Yeah. So that's a huge thing we're working on right now, and it's going through a lot of different
stages, and it's been a huge learning curve. So Chasing Natives was the title for a short film that me and Marcos did, my buddy Marcos Mazzola, last year. And that's where we did 8,000-mile trip across the country. Mostly everybody has seen that film now. A lot of people saw like articles that we did on it and such. But yeah, we did an 8,000-mile trip targeting 10 native species of trout. A few of those species they were remote populations, so they were stocked outside of their native range to protect the species. So some people say it's not a true native, but they're a transplant population to protect the native. So say Arizona and New Mexico do this a lot. They were a smart state. They pulled populations out of the native range, put them in some crazy place in the middle of nowhere that in case something ever happened to that population in its native range, they could go and pull that pure, strain out of there and restock them and get eggs and, get more fish back in the native range of those fish. And so some of those fish were kind of in situations like that. But the big thing we're working on now, which did start as a film, the Chasing Natives idea was a film, and it had no name. It was just called the Fly Fishing Film at first until we thought of a name. And kind of it fell under that same realm of the Chasing Natives thing that me and Marcos did. And we kind of built up, people knew the name, they were recognizing it. So we're like, let's just keep going with that name. And this project is actually really the idea of this guy I know from the Army, Josh, and his coworker, partner in their filmmaking business, Dylan. And they reached out to me and asked if me and Marcos would host this. So it's kind of cool that we'll be on, even though when me and Marcos do our short films, it is us filming each other, but this will just be us. We won't be filming. So it's just us fishing the whole time. So we're not kind of multitasking with everything. And we've decided it's best to split this into a series due to attention spans. People really don't have very big attention spans nowadays. So making it a film would have been really tough for people to sit through an entire film and watch the whole thing without getting bored or just losing interest in it in general. So we've moved it to a series, and we've been, trying to raise funds for this, reaching out to different companies for partnerships and everything like that for about 8 months now. And a lot of it's just been trying to get the logistics down, permits, whether it be filming permits, the fishing permits, linking up with the guides, the biologists, the fisheries experts, because the real goal behind this project is it is a fly fishing film, but it's more than that. It's really we're trying to see what the rest of the world is doing about their fisheries and the native fish that call those home. So like, how are they managing them? So, places like Slovenia, the marble trout was near extinction due to hybridization with brown trout, and now they've made a huge comeback. So that's like kind of one of our positive areas we're going to go to. Nepal was a country that we were going to visit. I think we've dropped Nepal just due to funding. It would be very hard to fund Nepal, as it's by far the most expensive place we've been quoted for anything. We were quoted for a 9-day guided kind of expedition for close to 100,000 US, which was a pretty big shock.
Yeah.
To hear that, and mostly everywhere else. So South Africa, every person that we've talked to said, you get here, we'll put you up, we'll get you on the fish, because you're doing us a service by raising awareness for our species and trying to spread this whole global message for native fish and protecting them and how important it is. Because a lot of people forget that, our native species are kind of the indicator species to how the health is of a stream or of a river or of any body of water, So when the native species start dying off, something's probably wrong with that body of water. And really, I don't know where my love for native fish kind of came from. I did a few years in a row just kind of going out west for cutthroat trout, and I've seen the damage that rainbow trout out there have done to them with hybridization. And I don't get me wrong, I love catching every species there is out there. I've got no problem catching in their native range outside. But I think that there is a point where you still have to manage our native species. I talk to people often that think brown trout are native to the United States. And I have to explain, like, hey, they're native to Germany and other European nations, not the United States. They're wild fish here. Most brown trout populations are wild now. They've been in the streams for 100 years, but still not a native species. And I don't think brown trouts do as much damage as people say, besides eating our native fish versus rainbows, which do the most with hybridization and stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's we're doing this big project, and we're going to launch a Kickstarter here, or Indiegogo actually. By the first week of May is the plan to have that launched, just to help us out with the funding and stuff like that.
Are you guys just trying to bring awareness to the native species? And like I was reading over it, it's talked about, how other cultures may treat their native species. I mean, what's the ultimate goal of the film, Cameron?
Yeah, the ultimate goal is really just, to get a lot of the younger generations to look at our native species. Yeah, I see that, and that's throughout the world. Everyone wants the biggest and baddest fish, and don't get me wrong, I'll take the biggest and baddest fish. But, I've got some serious health issues, and kind of when that came about, I started to appreciate smaller things, like just the little details of things. And I think one of the first species of fish I caught after my health had taken a turn for the worse was a long-ear sunfish, and it was in like spawn colors, and that, like, it was just so lit up. This is when I was in Texas. It was just so lit up, and I was like, I never have looked at a sunfish this way. Normally, if you're fishing for bass or something, you hook a sunfish, you're like, oh, thanks a lot, and you throw it back. You don't even look at it, Mm-hmm. And I started paying more attention to it. So we kind of want people to, pay attention to the little details. Most native species in our country tend to be smaller. Besides like bull trout and stuff like that. But as far as in the trout families go, they're a lot smaller. So people kind of will be like, oh, that's no fun. But the big goal is to raise awareness for our native species and the health of our fisheries. Because like I said earlier, they are an indicator species. They show us what the health is doing in that water body. So really just raising awareness for conservation of native fish, raising awareness that they are cool fish to target, they're beautiful fish. Any native, it doesn't have to be trout, just any native fish. There are species like gar that people hate, and gar are a super fun game fish to target. They jump like tarpon, they put up a good fight. And there's other species like that too. People bow fish for buffalo because they think they're an invasive carp, and buffalo are native to half the places people are bow fishing for them. So just raising awareness, I think, is what's the overall goal, and it's just being told through fly fishing.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Now, you had mentioned some physical, you had some, like, a disease, and I read that about, what is it called? I read it on your bio, but what was it called again? Well, thank you guys so much for listening to the Remote No Pressure. We'll just take a little minute to talk about our sponsors. And just remember that when you buy from our sponsors, you're also sponsoring the podcast.
Yeah, you're helping supporting us.
Yeah. And there's different ways to raise money for a podcast. But we really like to help others and just for you to get something.
That's right.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No.
With Patreon and those other things. Old Seinfeld reference.
Yep, that's where I was going to.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. But, hey, this was it. Last week we had an event with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
Yeah, we did.
Phil Wingo came up.
That was awesome.
It was awesome. It was awesome to hang out with him. Just
it was.
To know him a little better.
Yeah.
He's the owner of
Sandhill Coffee.
And he brought up some new coffee. Oh, first of all, how did you like the Big Lake blend?
I'm still loving it. Yeah, I'm slowly going through it. That's like my weekend relaxing and enjoying coffee. I've got a burr grinder at home, and I grind it out Saturday morning, get out my French press, and just make a big pot.
Just enjoy it.
Yep.
Is it good? I haven't had the French press. Is it delicious?
Yeah, it's a lot better through my French press than through my Keurig with the little make your own cups. Those are just too watery. I got to find a way of. I wonder if there's a perfect way to do it through a Keurig. I don't know. Some kind of sustainable way to go through the Keurig. You know.
And then, when he came up, he gave me some Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, he did.
What do you think about that?
That was pretty good.
Yeah, we're drinking it right now. We made it before
Well, I
the
finished it.
podcast.
Sorry.
You finished it?
Sorry, folks.
I'm still drinking mine. It's cold. I'm kind of
You gonna finish that?
sipping on it. Yeah. But it's this. I think the Papua New Guinea is my favorite so far.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I'm still a fan of the Big Lakes.
Yeah. I don't know
Big
if
Lake, but-
I don't know if he's going to keep that blend around or not. The Big Lake. I don't know. Maybe if we get enough podcast listeners to go and order some Big Lake.
Yeah, there it is.
Supply and demand. You know. No, but that Big Lake blend was awesome.
Yeah.
I like that and the Chasky. But he's a fly fisherman. He's a fly angler.
Yep.
He's a good dude. He has a great business and he's growing it. And he's from Illinois, the Midwest. So we're always happy to help.
Keeping it local.
Trying to keep it as local as we can. But yeah, we really appreciate him. And so go check him out at sandhillcoffee.com. Also, if you enter the discount code outside19, you'll get 20% off your first order.
Oh, that is great.
That's really cool. Thanks for offering
Bill.
that. So again, check it out. Outside19 for 20% off your first order. Also, sustainability, like we talked about with the Keurig, is important. And one of our listeners, and he's been on the podcast twice actually, has created a company called Deli Fresh Design that's doing an amazing job recycling waders, recycling fishing products. What you got? I got the sling pack. We got the beer koozies.
Yep.
I was up on the Asaba last week using that sling pack.
Fly wallets.
The fly wallets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all made out of recycled sails, recycled waders.
Yeah,
and they're
that's
also, the thing is what I like, because I was always a vest guy. I was always a vest guy. When I talked to him, he was like, "Hey, you got to try my sling pack," So I tried out the sling pack, and it changed my life. It was like not life changing, like oh my gosh, I saw the light, but it really changed my fishing. It was a lot more efficient, a lot more effective because that stupid vest. You got a lot of stuff in there that you don't need.
Yep.
So Ross White's his name, and he's like, hey, check out this sling pack, and I was like, awesome. And it was a little pricier, but no one on the river is going to have something that looks like that. I got that digital camo.
Yep.
It's so awesome. And my wife uses the maroon one, which is kind of pinkish, got a pinkish hue to it. So both of them are great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so go check them out at delifreshdesign.com, and let's get back to the podcast. Now, you had mentioned some physical, you had some like a disease, and I read that about. What is it called? I read it on your bio, but what was it called again?
Yeah, so I guess the primary disease would be gastroparesis, and that just simply means my stomach's paralyzed. In simple terms.
So can you, like, if you don't mind me asking, I'm not trying to get too personal, but like, do you have bowel movements and stuff like that, or is it like no?
No, yeah. So basically, I got sick while overseas, bad batch of water, so I got really sick, put a lot of strain on my body. And when I came back, I ended up getting 2 hernias, a sliding hiatal hernia and a paraesophageal hernia. Most men, by the time they're 55, 60, 70, all have some type of hiatal hernia. And normally that's just like reflux, small reflux levels and stuff like that. But a paraesophageal hernia sits on the outside of your esophagus and is a lot harder to see and detect and can kill your stomach. Well, it'll twist it and your stomach will actually die. And so I was having super bad reflux to where I couldn't do PT anymore. If I hit a bump in a vehicle, reflux is in my throat. So I tried every medicine there was and none of them worked. And then I talked to a surgeon and it was her idea. She said, you know what, we should do this surgery called the Nissen fundoplication, where they take your upper stomach and they wrap it around your lower esophagus to re-strengthen that sphincter, and they remove the hernia while it's there. So she went in. This is when she found that paraesophageal hernia and the sliding hiatal. So she took both down. About a week after the surgery, I couldn't breathe anymore. And I went to the hospital, and this is, an Army surgeon, mind you, so can't have much faith in him. And I was like, I can't breathe, ma'am. I've got a lot of chest pain. And she's like, surgery, PTSD. And basically I had to beg her for about 2 more weeks to give me a barium study. So she gives me a barium. The radiologist guy, he starts laughing. He's like, you should see the size of this hernia. And basically the entire surgical site had re-herniated and was crushing my lung and was crushing on my lung. So they do an upper endoscopy the next day to see how bad it is. If you've had an upper endoscopy, you're been put under in general. When you wake up, you're kind of groggy, still don't really know what's going on. And I get a phone call a few hours later, like, we got to do emergency surgery tomorrow. We'll just sign all the paperwork the day after. Because, when you have a surgery, you're supposed to, like, go in the day before and, get everything checked, your EKGs and stuff like that before. So didn't do that. Went in for the surgery, and out of pure complacency, she cut my vagus nerve.
Oh, my God.
And your vagus nerve is super important to your digestive system, your endocrine system.
To everything.
Pretty much everything, for that matter. And so when she cut that, it caused a few issues, really bad esophageal spasms. So I couldn't even drink water at the time. Like, water wouldn't go down. So I was going in for IVs a lot. The only thing I could get down was blue Gatorade. They don't tell you that you kind of have to learn how to rebreathe. And I went from 190 pounds of being super lean and mean, infantry guy, kicking down doors type of thing, to 145 pounds in like a matter of 2 months, because I hadn't eaten anything. And when I finally learned how to block out that esophageal spasm, because it feels like a heart attack. I mean, it's super painful. It pushes out in your arms. And basically, it's like your esophagus locks on whatever you're trying to put in and pushes it back out. So with this surgery, I can't ever physically throw up again. If I throw up, there's a big problem. And that means most likely I've thrown up the surgical site, which I'd probably just choke on and die. But the surgery prevents me from throwing up, which sounds nice to some people, but it is absolutely miserable when you get sick, because it's super painful. My body's trying to punch itself basically from the inside. And so I finally learned how to mentally block out those spasms to where I didn't panic, and I started eating like mashed potatoes and rice and stuff that I didn't have to chew and break down. And I noticed I was like super bloated. I looked like I was 7 months pregnant for days and days, and I was so nauseous. And so they started sending me to all these different specialists, and finally they did a few studies and found out that she had cut my nerve. So she never like stated this, but they realized it during another surgery later on to help me, and then during a bunch of tests. And so when she cut the nerve, it caused a gastroparesis. It caused severe hypoglycemia. So my sugars dropped like all the time into the 30s. And basically what was happening was, when your stomach's paralyzed, nothing digests. It just sits there. So I would eat mashed potatoes and then go in for like an upper endoscopy 4 days later. And the doctor would wake me up and he'd be like, you're not supposed to eat after midnight. And I was like, I haven't eaten in 5 days. And they're like, then how come I can see this rice or this mashed potatoes? And I was like, sir, I swear. So they did another surgery called this is where you're kind of answering your question about like bowel movement stuff. But they did a surgery called a pyloroplasty, which disables the bottom sphincter of my stomach. So now it's just open. So when I eat, everything just dumps out immediately, which creates a whole nother mess of problems. So that pulls more sugar from more glucose out, makes the hypoglycemia worse, makes me have to go to the bathroom very quickly after I eat. And nothing really breaks down. So I don't really absorb enough nutrients. But I've denied a feeding tube. I've denied a PICC line. I can't live like that. I've seen in support groups that I've joined, probably close to 100 people now in the past 2 years, 3 years almost, kill themselves, who have gastroparesis. And that that negativity is like, so I hate it. That's why if you go on my social media, up until recently, nothing showed I had any health issues. Like, I never put it on my website. And then I finally did recently. I've always had kind of a passion over painting on like my Instagram and stuff. But I've realized I'm going to be in the same pain in my bed versus on the beach or out fishing. And fly fishing has just been the biggest medicine for me. When I'm out on the water, like, my nausea levels go down. I'm not in as much pain, because basically I'm always in pain. I'm always nauseous. And if I have to eat or drink anything, it just increases. So I'm doing my best to show my kids really that I didn't let this disease control my life like all the other people that I know who have it are letting it control them. So if I die younger or I die out in some creek somewhere, my wife has acknowledged that's the best way for me to go. As sad as that may sound, I'm not going to let some disease really control me, and I'll pay for it in the long run. And every now and again, I have a scare. I'll go to the hospital for a few days due to my esophagus locking up and holding in something, or, stuff like that. And, that's kind of the cliff notes of it. I know it's kind of a long cliff note, but it's as short as I can get it condensed down to.
Before you began to deal with all the health issues, I mean, the question I'm trying to ask him is, how has that affected you? I know physically in the symptoms and the negativity, that you fight and all of that, but how has that changed you as a person?
Well, I mean, totally, 100%. I'm a different person. I will say I've always been one to kind of stop and look at small things, but not like I've appreciated little things in the world, but not as much as I do now. Really the kicker in my face, what really made me look at this like I can't live like this anymore, was after, I don't think I'd had my third surgery yet. So I think I was somewhere between my second and third. And every day, my daughter was young, didn't understand. She would come into the room. Can we go to the park? And I was literally living in my bed or in the shower. That's the only two things I did. I went to the bed, went in the shower, and I would just sit there in either one. And I drink Gatorade or, and stuff like that. Like I wasn't eating. And she would ask me every day, can I go to the park? Can we go to the park? And every day I said, I can't bring you. And one day she didn't ask me. And the day she didn't ask me was the day I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, is this what it's going to be like for the rest of my life? My daughter basically had given up on me at that point. And that was when I approached Allison and I was like, I need to go fly fish. And she kind of looked at me like I was stupid. She's like, babe, you can't even walk through the house without your glucose going down to 30. And you know anything about glucose levels, anything below 70, the average person's passing out at like 70.
Right.
Anything below 50, you're burning brain cells. Anything below 30, you're at risk of going into, like a stroke, seizure, a coma. And I've had a seizure, one of that I know of. I don't know if I've had any others. I could have. I don't know. That was really the big turnaround point when I was like, I can't. And man, the first few months were rough. I'd go out in the river. I kid you not, I'd pass out. I thought like my sugars would drop. I'd wake up in the rocks on the San Gabriel River in Texas, and friends would be running over to me and pulling me up out of the water and you're all right, and shooting cookie icing into the corner of my mouth or whatever glucose gel I had. I struggled for the longest time, and there was times when I just couldn't do it. I was in so much pain, I gave up, and then I started noticing my pain levels would drop, and I was out in the water more and more. I finally went to, I had my blood work done all the time, and they said, like, you've got no B12 anymore. Your white blood cell count is so low, you're borderline needing transfusion, blah, 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 blah. And after I was like fly fishing more, and I started going to the Devils with this issue, and I was like, man, this is great. And everyone's looking at me like, dude, I don't want to bring this guy. This is a liability, And I finally went to a doctor, and I explained the situation to him. I was like, listen, this is what's happening. My sugars aren't dropping while I'm out on the water. What's going on here? And this doctor's like, I don't know. It's in your head. There's no way. Then he sends me to some other guy, and this dude draws blood right when I get there. And then he's like, man, tell me about what do you love? And I started talking about fly fishing, and randomly, I didn't catch it at the time. He's like, hey, I needed a certain type of blood draw from you for a different test I didn't get. He draws the blood again. He's like, I'll be right back. He goes and runs them, we've been talking for like another 30 minutes, and somebody comes and drops them off. Somehow, when he first read my level, it's like everything was low, no energy, no nothing. And then when he got me talking about fly fishing, my endorphins were so high, like man, my adrenaline was so high that it was shooting out everything that I basically needed at the moment.
Awesome.
And I can't say this would work. This would be the case for everybody. I do have a super high, like, don't quit mentality, which is probably how to do with like that infantry mindset that they pound into you. So I think that has helped me a lot, deal with this stuff. But my kids, for sure, I don't know where I'd be right now if if my kids weren't here to motivate me to keep going. And it's funny, man. I'll go out with friends and they'll be like, dude, I'm dying. And I'm like, let's keep going. And I just, fly fishing truly saves my life every single day, every day.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. And, we've had some ex-military guys, I don't say former military guys on our show who have dealt with their PTSD or they were in combat and they tell the story of how it saved their life, but this is like, and that's great. And mental, I mean, it's saved my life mentally. And, my story, a lot of people, know it coming out of corporate America, super stressed. But, when you can actually see the blood test, that's pretty wild. That's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah, it's insane. It really is. And it's super funny. I've been to Afghanistan. I did time overseas. And when I started dealing with this health issues, I would talk to like various, medical doctors, behavioral doctors, and they always want to talk about PTSD and combat. And I was like, listen, my stomach hurts. Let's talk about that, So it's kind of funny, balancing between the two, per se. But yeah, it's just every day I wake up and I'm like, hey, let's knock out today. There's some funny terms for people that have gastroparesis. They call us spoonies. It's a disease that primarily attacks women. There's not many men with it, but, and that's due to the fact that it's normally idiopathic. There's no known cause. It just happens. Most people who do have it that are men, it's surgically related. They cut a nerve, the vagus nerve to be exact. But, yeah, it's wild. It's been a heck of a journey.
Wow.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where I'd be without the fly fishing, and then without the family and stuff like that. So definitely been a big improvement on my life, and I've tried to pass this positivity that in my experience to others with invisible illnesses. And I've been kicked out of support groups for being too positive. No joke. Kicked out of support groups for being too positive. So I guess I'm doing something right.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I have a lot of physical issues as well, and you can choose to be a victim, and you can choose to not be a victim. And I know being a victim is the easiest route. It's just like, I was hit by a drunk driver when I was 11, and I broke my hip, and when I was 11 years old. So all middle school, I was laid up. Either on a crutches, a walker, or a wheelchair, all through middle school. High school was not fun. I got out of college. I went and got a hip replacement because they couldn't replace it when I was younger. Contracted a staph infection, almost died in the hospital for 6 months, just like craziness. And even to this day, there's certain things I can't get on the floor with my kids and play with them, just because the way my hip is, and I still have a lot of issues. And I can sit here and I can say, oh, I can't go outside, I can't run, or I can't go fly fishing, or I can't do this, or I can be a victim, and you can be a victim. And some people, unfortunately, and I may step on some toes, but it becomes their identity.
100%.
It becomes their identity. Like, I'm a crippled. I'm just a cripple, and it's like, no, that's not. I'm not going out like that. And so I kudos to you, man, for being positive and the pain that you deal with every single day, and just being positive. It's great to get kicked out for being too positive. I mean, that's a good thing. What's I know you guys are working for the film. If people would like to find out more about it, Cameron, where would they go and what would they do?
Yeah, so we've got basically 3 areas we're kind of lingering on social media dedicated to Chasing Natives. So there's a Facebook page and Instagram. Both of those, that username is Chasing Natives Film. And then the website is just chasingnatives.com. And so the website right now is being worked on, just kind of transforming it from the film into the series. When this is aired, it probably will already be done. And actually the pilot episode, we will either be filming right around that time in Montana or about to, or just gotten back. So yeah, chasingnatives.com, or there's every now and again I'll post it up on my own website, Cameron Cush or CameronCushman.com. Both go to the same place. And then But yeah, on Instagram, Chasing Natives Film. Same thing with Facebook, Chasing Natives Film. And we haven't been updating it while we've transitioned from the film to a series, just so we can get everything in line and there's no complications as far as like giving people multiple bits of information. We want to get everything locked in now and then the right information out. That way people know what we're doing. So if they're trying to donate or get more involved, then they're not getting different information. So.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much. We'll be sure to put those links in the show notes so people can find you guys. And Cameron, thank you so much. It's great to hear your story. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Oh, no, blast. Thanks for having me on. Enjoy the podcast. I listen to it quite often when I'm trying to go to bed.
Glad we can put you to sleep, Cameron. Glad we can put you to sleep.
Trying is the key word, though. Trying to go to bed is the key word.
It's like we were at Pittsburgh last week, and the guy at Toronto Limited, it was a beautiful night, okay? And up north here, we don't get a lot of beautiful nights this time of year. It could snow. We got 6 inches of snow on Monday. But he's like, yeah, we have between 40 and 80 people that usually come out. And 40 people showed up. I'm like, I'm glad we could draw such a big crowd. Anyways, I digress. But thanks a lot for hanging out with me, man. Appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. It was a blast. Thanks.
Well, thank you for joining us on another episode of the Remote No Pressure Podcast.
Indeed.
You ready to go to trout camp?
I am ready, yes.
Trout camp next week for us. We're super excited to get out and do some fishing.
Get on the river.
Yes, yeah. And
going to a new river this time.
The Asable this time, yeah.
Holy water.
Yeah, pretty excited about that.
Indeed.
I was up there last week, but too windy and sunny. But yeah, but thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, go fishing.